Hello everybody, welcome along to our coverage of the first practice session of the weekend here at the Nürburgring. As you can see, we've got typical Eiffel weather here in that we don't quite know what it's going to do. It's been pretty warm, pretty sunny so far today, but looking out from the commentary box, and as you can see from the wide picture there are quite a few dark clouds in the sky, which definitely contain some rain. So the forecast is largely good and positive and dry for the next 2 days. Sunday might be a little bit different, but it's so unpredictable here that it's really almost not even worth talking about until it happens. So the Nürburgring is the venue for the fourth event of this 2021 season, this new era of DTM, which has proven to be highly successful so far and gets even bigger and even more variety on the grid for this weekend, because we will have 23 cars on the grid for the two races this weekend, and 7 different manufacturers, with Porsche coming on board. Michael Ammermoller, a former 3-time Porsche Super Cup champion, is going to be driving as a guest driver with the SSR Performance Squad. We've got Hubert Hout back into the DTM, the team boss of Team HRT in the 3rd Mercedes run by the team. We've got Luca Stotz coming in for his DTM debut this weekend with the TalkSport WRT Mercedes team, who are based locally just outside the circuit here. And for a second consecutive DTM weekend, Christian Klein is back in the JP Motorsport McLaren. They can see the championship standings with a 21-point lead now for Kelvin Van Der Linde, who picked up his 2nd win of the season last time out at Zolder. But it is still a narrow championship lead with 25 points available for each race win, plus a further 6 points potentially available if you qualify on pole position for both races. That's all coming up tomorrow. They don't need to think about points too much today. They just need to think about setting the cars up for the sprint circuit that we're going to be using here, which was a version of the circuit that's most commonly used with DTM. We were here twice last year in the pandemic-affected season with back-to-back weekends at the Nürburgring. As you look at the championship leader, Kelvin Van Der Linde, getting ready to go out, the South African. We had one weekend on the Grand Prix circuit. The 2nd weekend was here on this sprint version of the circuit. And in and around us, of course, you've already seen the Nürburg Castle. You've no doubt, many of you, been here for 24-hour race weekends, part of the Nordschleife, all around the circuit, this wonderful historic venue. And after the recent tragedies with the floods in this part of Germany, this is the first weekend back for motorsport, which is really the heartbeat of this area. It's a largely countryside-driven area. The town of Nürburg, or the village of Nürburg itself, only has 170 inhabitants. There are family-run hotels and businesses all around this area, which have been devastated, and homes, of course, and many lives lost with the floods that we've had. The rescue centre for that operation was based here in the paddock for a good time now. It's been moved just outside the circuit. I drove past it on the way in. It's a huge, huge operation. And a massive thanks to all of the helpers and volunteers and services that are still working tirelessly to help those in need. But for the region, it's a very positive step to have motorsport back here. We've got fans in as well, under some restrictions, but fans in the grandstands. Looking forward to a very positive and hopefully uplifting weekend of motorsport here in the Eiffel region. So there are the cars getting ready to go out. My name's Chris Hartley. I'm going to be talking you through all the action during the course of today, tomorrow and Sunday. And with less than 45 seconds to go now, we're getting ready for the cars to go out onto what will be a 45-minute session. I think they'll be keen to get out early because of that question mark over the weather. The clouds keep passing on by. There's a bit of a breeze out there. So you get the rain clouds, they blow over, but at any time there could be some rain on the circuit. So they want to get some purely dry running in. Sheldon Van Der Linde had a tough weekend at Zolder. And he and the Rover Racing squad will be looking for good things here. Timo Glock, his teammate, yet to score a point in the championship. And the team, Rover Racing, with huge experience of competing at the Nürburgring in VLN and the Nürburgring 24 Hours and GT racing. But they've never raced this version of the circuit, the sprint circuit, and of course they've never raced in the DTM. So it's a first for them, but they'll be looking forward to it. Rover Racing are expecting, they've said, this to be a tough circuit. The BMW strengths lie in high-speed turns and in its straight-line speed. And although it's a quicker circuit than Zolder, the feeling is it might not be best suited to their BMW. That said, we had victory for BMW with that terrific drive from pole position for Marco Whitman to get his first win for 2 years, his first pole, his first win for 2 years in the DTM. In a BMW, admittedly not with the Rover Racing squad, but he was a successful BMW driver. We've had 5 different winners from the 6 races so far this season. And what a sight this is as Porsche head out onto the track for their first ever competitive session, competitive weekend in the DTM. It's been 34 years since we had 7 different manufacturers on the grid in the DTM. Back in 1987, you have to go all the way back to 1987 to find the last time that happened. And that was at Zolder, where we were last time out in Belgium for the 3rd race weekend of the season. So it's phenomenal to have all these competitors out there. And there is Liam Lawson, Ferrari becoming the first non-German manufacturer to win in the DTM since the 1990s, since Alfa Romeo and Nicola Larini were victorious, and Liam Lawson is very much in the championship hunt this year, 2nd in the points. Mixed weekend for him at Zolder, but the 19-year-old New Zealander will no doubt come out fighting. So drivers just building up some speed and some momentum. Philippe Ellis was the first to go out of the paddock, so he's just whipped past the commentary position, and there coming out of the pits is Liam Lawson. You were riding on board with Max Gotts, who's one of the 5 different race winners so far this season. And there the AF calls that run. Red Bull Ferrari making its way out onto this circuit for the first time this weekend. So it's a 3.629 kilometre long circuit, 3.6 kilometres long. Top speed is expected to be around about 265 kilometres an hour here. It's not as flat a circuit as you might think. There are some undulations, not steep undulations, but there are some ups and downs through the first sector. And then heading back up towards the chicane, the Vidal chicane at turns 10 and 11. There's an uphill climb through that straight there. So undulations here. There are 36 gear shifts per lap. And it is a busy start to the lap as well as they brake and turn through what's almost a hairpin at turn 1. And then straight into the Mercedes-Benz Arena, the left at turn 2. A hairpin at 3, a right-angled 90-degree corner at turn 4. And then through the little jink left, right and left through turn 5. Onto the short straight. It's there where they hit the hairpin at turn 6, though. Instead of going straight on and left towards the full Grand Prix circuit, they turn right there and then back on themselves for a shorter run up to turn 7, Kumo Curva, through the big curve at turn 8, the right-hander, and this is where then they start to build up the speed at the end of sector 2 and the start of sector 3 through the very quick right-hander at Hatzenbeck-Bogen, turn 9, up towards the Vidal chicane at 10 and 11. And then through what's a pretty important final turn, the Coca-Cola curve at turn 12. So drivers building up tyre temperature, just running through settings on the cars, shaking things down essentially, making sure all the systems are in operation before they start to go for some quick lap times. And there you can see Hubert Haupt making his return to the DTM. This weekend, he will become the first driver to compete in all 3 different eras of the DTM. He's still a regular racer, well, concentrating on being a team boss these days with the Haupt Racing team. But he still races. He was racing the Dubai 24 Hours this year. His last DTM race, though, was back in 2001. It's 20 years since he was last in the DTM, Hubert Haupt. His debut was 30 years ago in 1991 at Zolder. So he raced in the early 1990s in DTM, initially with Audi in the V8 Quattro with Schmidt Motorsport. One of his teammate was Hans-Joachim Stutt, the legend of DTM. But he raced against the likes of Steve Soper, Ellen Law. He was racing that weekend that she became the only woman so far to win a DTM race at Hockenheim in 1992. And then he went away from DTM racing for the best part of 10 years. He came back for a season in 2001 with Opel, but it wasn't such a successful time for Hubert. Then he only got 1 points finish, but he's done lots and lots of GT racing and endurance racing in between. Still does that. He's a Dubai 24-hour race winner just a few years ago in 2018, and it's great to have him here. And a 3rd car it will be for the Haupt Racing team this weekend. Good for the team that after the disappointment of having their points taken away from them at Monza, HRT and Vincent Abril in particular were able to get some points last time out at Zolder. Max Stotz then, who's very much in the championship fight, riding on board with him. And there Hubert Haupt behind him in the Playboy liveried Mercedes. So these two Mercedes running together on track at the moment, using some of the curves, which means they're starting to build up the speed now. Max Stotz making his way through the Coca-Cola curve, stays out and gets on the gas and attacks for the start of this lap. Lucas Stotz has set the early benchmark time in the session, which is a 1 minute 27.673. So Lucas Stotz, who's another of the guest drivers. The guest drivers aren't able to score championship points, but they are very much involved in the action. And there is Luca, a great livery on the car, the dark green, almost a British racing green, that on the number 7 Mercedes, run by the Top Sport WRT team. He's got absolute best in the second sector and looked neat and tidy coming out of the Coca-Cola curve. It was an absolute best third sector as well. And so 127.576. Daniel Hungaday has just done a 128.006, but Lucas Stotz on his debut in the DTM is quickest early doors. And the team, as I say, is based just a few kilometres away from the circuit. And Lucas Stotz might not be familiar to DTM fans, but he's a very well-respected GT racer, 26-year-old from Kersham. He's been competing in the ADAC GT Masters for 8 or 9 years now on a regular basis, but also in the GT World Challenge Europe Series Blancpain. He was the Blancpain GT Sprint champion back in 2018. He's been a Silver Cup champion as well, and his debut in motorsport goes all the way back to 10 years ago now, when he made his debut in the Formula Masters Championship as a teenager back then. So Stotz quickest, Hungaday second, and Michael Ammermuller has gone third for Porsche, 128.034 seconds. Philippe Ellis in the Mercedes is fourth, and we've got another debutant, which is Christopher Haas, who's here this weekend. Now, this is a very late change, so Christopher Haas, who's another hugely experienced GT racer, but making his debut in DTM this weekend, has been drafted in late for Team Rosberg to stand in for Dev Gore. Dev's had to pull out at the last minutes for personal reasons of this weekend. The plan is that he'll be back at Spielberg, the Red Bull Ring, for the next event, but Christopher Haas has stepped in, knows the Audi R8 very well indeed, and should go well, so watch out for Christopher, who's already gone fourth quickest in the number 12 Team Rosberg Audi. Lucas Stotz into the technical check area. And there we see Porsche in DTM. This is wonderful, isn't it? Having so many different manufacturers, such a wide variety of cars in the DTM. And we've had some brilliant, brilliant racing. And it's all been about raw overtaking and pace and skill as well. There's no more push to pass, there's no more DRS. I'm loving it, the new season, brilliant. So Ammermuller already up into the top 3. You're right on board with him now. 3 consecutive years he won the Porsche Super Cup. Never quite won the Porsche Carrera Cup Germany, Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland. Runner-up in that, top 3 in that, never quite won it, but he was the Super Cup champion, which often supports Formula 1. Won that in 2017, 2018 and 2019. And last year, he won the ADAC GT Masters Championship with Christian Engelhardt. And with this team, SSR Performance, which is a relatively new team. Great to have them on board with us here, and great to see Michael at work. Got Nico Muller's just improved up into 6th place. And there is another returnee to the DTM, number 99 this weekend, the Team Ab Sportsline Audi, driven by Marcus Winkelhock. And was really interested to see how he gets on. Now, he's been involved in the development of the fly-by-wire steering that's used on that car. So there's no mechanical steering, there's no attachment to a steering column to the steering. It's all done electronically, and he's been involved in that. So even though he hasn't raced that car this season, he knows all about the systems behind him. Marcus already into the top 10. Vincent Abril has done 2 personal best sectors so far. Ammermuller's gone up to 2nd place. We've got Lucas Stotz, who's quickest in the pits. Daniel Hungaday, who's 3rd in the pits. But Ammermuller's still out there in the Porsche. And he's gone into the 127.7s now. So 127.5 for Stotz, so 127.743 for Ammermuller. Hunkerdale in the pits with a 127.555, just 12,000 slower. Christopher Haas is the leading Audi at the moment, 128.155 in fourth. Philip Ellis, Mercedes, fifth with a 128.2. And Nico Muller, as I say, up to sixth with a 128.3. We've seen Vincent Ambrol going well as well. He's currently up to seventh place. Christian Klein in eighth. Marcus Vinhoff is down to ninth and coming into the pits as well. The reason he's standing in for Sophia Florsch this weekend is that Sophia is racing at Le Mans. So best wishes to Sophia and the team. So she gets on at the wonderful Le Mans 24 Hours, which is running this weekend. Different weekend to normal, of course, with things being pushed back due to the pandemic, but it'll be a fantastic experience for her. She'll be back with us for the rest of the season, but she couldn't pass up the opportunity to race at Le Mans, of course. Lucas Auer is the other driver in the top 10 at the moment, 128.410. So currently we've got the top 13 covered by 9/10 of a second, so it's pretty tight up there towards the top of the table. We haven't seen much from the Ferraris yet. Alex Albon has been out but not really set a quick lap time, a 130.7, so he's 22nd. And we did see Liam Lawson going out onto the circuit, but not, again, pushing a lap time. So just doing a systems check, I suspect, and we'll see more from him. Now, personal best through the first sector for Hubert Haupt, and a decent second sector as well with a 22.1. The second sector is the shorter sector of the lap. So we'll see how he gets on this third sector, which is not bad either. So 11th place, 128.5, and his best is a 432. So he's within a tenth of his best lap time there. Hubert Haupt doing a decent job. A 52-year-old team leader. Esteban Muth has just set a personal best through the first sector of 44.9 seconds, but the absolute best through sector one, set by Stotz, was a 44.3, so it's not going to be a super rapid lap time. That first sector here is the longest sector. That's the key sector. It takes you all the way from the start through the Mercedes arena and down to the hairpin, and it's only coming out of the hairpin at turn 6 that you end sector 1. So sector 1's almost half the lap. Sector 2 takes in the Kumo curve at turn 7, the bit curver, and up towards the exit to turn 9, as you then begin to climb uphill towards the Vidal chicane. Halfway up that straight is where sector 2 ends, and sector 3 is the Vidal chicane and the Coca-Cola curve, essentially. So that's only around about 22 seconds through the last sector. So to be on for a serious lap time, you've got to be looking at a really strong first sector, because that takes, as I say, half the lap. Running a bit wide there is the Lamborghini, the T3 Motorsport Lamborghini of Esteban Muth. There you can see from the wide shot there are still plenty of grey and dark clouds up above, but it's still fairly bright looking out of the commentary box window as well. So it's not, it's warm, so it's patches of sun breaking through the gaps in the cloud at the moment. Hubert Haupt heading into turn 1. That's a great shot of this first sector through that very tight, almost hairpin at turn 1, and that will be interesting as they'll pile into there from the rolling start in race 1 on Saturday, tomorrow afternoon, and then from there you tighten up into the 90-degree left-hander at turn 2, turns 3, 4 and 5 all following quick succession. Get that right and you're on for a good first sector. Now, great to see Arjun Maini back in action this weekend. He was involved in that pretty big pile-up early on in race 1 at Zolder. And to the eye, the damage to the car didn't look all that bad. I mean, it looked pretty bad, but it didn't look horrendous. But obviously there was a lot of damage underneath the bodywork. And unfortunately, Team Get Speed weren't able to get him out for Sunday at all. So he sat out qualifying 2 and he sat out race 2, which would have been hugely frustrating for him. So Arjun looking for his first points of the season in DTM. He's currently 12th quickest with a 128.494. But on for possibly a better lap here, 128.406. So that's enough to put him up a place, up into 11th now, just ahead of Lucas Auer. Lucas Stotz has gone back out. The driver is quickest at the moment. Amamula's in, he's second quickest, but Hunkerdale, third quickest, Haas, fourth quickest, and Ellis, fifth quickest, are all back out. And just coming into the pits is Hubert Haupt, having set the 6th fastest time of the session, 128.322. Not bad for somebody who's been away from DTM for 20 years. As I say, still a regular racer. Kelvin Van Der Linde in the pits at the moment, but only in 19th place. And his teammate, hasn't put a quick lap in yet either. Timo Glock, 22nd. Now, Mike Rockenfeller has had a strong season so far. He's only 15th at the moment, but he found a bit of time in the first sector. It's still not a great first sector, though. It's about 7/10 down in that first half of the lap. But again, you don't know if he's pushing for a quick lap time in this free practice session or whether he's just setting it up for a longer run to see how the tyres and the setup work over a longer period of time. But no doubt about it, Mike having a strong season. Will be coming up shortly to 200 race starts in the DTM, and the 2013 champion up to 7th place in the championship after picking up his second podium of the season at Zolder. He's had a second and a third, and he's one of the few drivers to have been in the points in the top 10 in every single race so far. Another driver that's achieved that is the championship leader, Kelvin Van Der Linde, who had the 8th place finish at Zolder. That's his worst so far. In all the other races, he's been in the top 4. He's had 2 wins. The only driver to win more than 1 race so far this season, Kelvin Van Der Linde. And a podium at Lawson as well. A couple of 4th place finishes. And that's why he's got 21-point lead in the championship. Another driver that's been in the points in every single race so far this season is Marco Whitman. Worst of 8th, best of 1st with that victory at Zolder in race 2. And Alex Albon has almost been in the points in every race. He had an 11th just outside the points at Lawson, but otherwise he's gone well as well. Starting to get his act together with qualifying now as well. He's been one of the best overtakers in the series. Made lots of gains from grid positions, Alex Albon. 5th in the championship for Ferrari on 54 points. So Michael Ammermuller, currently 2nd quickest, back out, pushing in a moment, I think, for another quick lap in this Ferrari. And somebody who there's absolutely no reason, with all of his skill and ability, why he shouldn't be pushing up there in the top 5 or top 6 this weekend. Great to have a new manufacturer on board, all their huge successes, of course, famously at Le Mans Porsche and in sports car racing. And Michael on a push lap here by the looks of it. We'll see what the first sector time is like. It's with the SSR Performance Squad, which is owned by Stefan Schlund. It's based in Munich, the team, and was only founded in 2016. Principal business originally being to repair and maintain sports cars and classic cars, but then they turned to racing. Ooh, Michael has lost the engine there as he clashed the curb, so he's rolling into the pit lane now. Got it fired up again, but he's going to have to bring that in. So he was pushing, but now has to bring the car in. Bit of a glitch there. Now whether it cut out as he went to the curbs or because he hit the curbs, we'll find out, but he definitely lost the power there. So in he comes. I can see him heading in now in the sort of almost lime green, yellowish lime green and black SSR Performance car. The team with which he won the ADAC GT Masters Championship last year, and with which he's leading it again this year, albeit with a different co-driver, Mathieu Jamanet, the French driver that he's with this season. As we see Max Boog. Now, we weren't necessarily expecting to see Max back in the car this weekend. He started the season as a super sub for the double champion Gary Paffett, who had to miss the first 2 rounds of the championship because of his commitments elsewhere in a development and advisory role with Formula E. He then was due to come to Zolder, but travel restrictions from the UK made that difficult. And then, having missed 3 weekends and with more potentially difficult travel to come at places like Assen, with the current restrictions from the UK, it meant that obviously no chance of attacking for the championship. He would have loved to come and had some races. Hopefully Gary will be back in the championship next year, but the decision has come that he's not going to compete at all now this year, and that gives us Max Boog for the rest of the season. So Max, who certainly been enjoying himself in the DTM, and he'll be looking to push on and potentially score some points this weekend if he can. Another Matt Scott's a decent lap there, 128.9. His best to 128.5. It's an okay lap, but again, lap times aren't the be-all and end-all of free practice. Sometimes about just setting things up for the race. They will try and get some qualified type runs in. There's no doubt about that, but it'll be worth an analysis of the longer type runs in this session. We didn't really get this in the first free practice at Zolder because the weather kept changing. But they've been able to get dry running so far in this session. Timo Glock on a better lap on this one, but it's not going to be a flying lap. I mean, his best is a 1:29.554 at the moment, which is almost 2 seconds off the pace. So Timo Glock, personal best on that lap, but it was only a personal best because he hadn't really done anything before that. He needs to find more pace. So Timo Glock, who, despite the team not having used the sprint circuit before, Rover Racing, they've been here at the Nürburgring and on the Nordschleife stacks of times, but never on the sprint circuit. But Timo, of course, having been involved in DTM for many years, has 14 times raced on this version of the circuit, so he'll be able to bring some of that knowledge to the team. Hopefully Timo can, after a tricky weekend at Zolder, push on and get some points. BMW's not seen much in terms of out-and-out pace from them so far. Marco Wittmann's the best of the BMWs in 17th. Kelvin Van Der Linde is 20th, and Timo Glock is 21st currently. Still, we haven't seen any flying laps from Liam Lawson. His best is 1:29.6, just over 2 seconds off the pace. So I don't think there's anything necessary to worry about yet, but we haven't seen him on a real flying lap. At Sportsline, the team to beat, Kelvin Van Der Linde, the driver to beat coming into this weekend. And Liam Lawson will have his eyes on that.
Do we stick to the plan on pads?
Yeah, you can put it in to try, but we need a big setup change.
Copy.
So team radio there. Shall we stick to the plan with pads? I think he said there, so referring to brake pads, and try it. But we need a big setup change, said Van der Linde. So he's clearly not overly enthused about the way the car is handling at the moment. The 25-year-old from Johannesburg also knows the Nürburgring well. 24-hour race winner back in 2017, ADAC GT Masters champion in 2014 and 2018. Here's his closest rival in the points, Liam Lawson. Might be about to start pushing him up himself and his Ferrari up the order now. The Red Bull AlphaTauri AF course over 200 kilometers an hour as he slows the car for that sharp right-hander at turn 1. Accelerates then through turn 2 briefly, holds the throttle on the curbs, running wide. And then he's straight through into the left-hander, down to second gear again through turn 3, into the right at turn 4. Holding second gear, not snatching up to third gear yet. Running way out wide, all 4 wheels over the curbs as he goes up through the gears now. And then slowing it right back down, first gear and under 80 kilometers an hour as he makes his way out of the hairpin. That's where they cut off for the Grand Prix circuit. Through the left at 5, there's a lot of holding third gear through this first half of the lap. Making his way through the right, and this is where the circuit now starts to open up as you go out through turn 8, through Bitkerver, through turn 9, Hatzenbock-Bogen at 5th gear, 240 kilometers an hour to 50 almost, then braking for the Vidal chicane. Turn 10, turn 11 follow each other in quick succession through the left, through the right, still climbing uphill here. And heading towards this pretty tight final curve, Coca-Cola curve at turn 12, taking a tight line to the inside, letting it drift out wide. Got to get a good exit there because you're flat out then for a long way down this slightly downhill run to turn 1, over 210 kilometers an hour, 220 as you cross the start-finish line, and he's going to push up to about 244, 245 again before he slows right down all the way to first gear for turn 1 once more. So that's a flying lap of the circuit with Liam Lawson. That was enough to put him up to 14th place in the Ferrari, 1:28.6, and I suspect the New Zealander is not yet done. Looking smooth again through the Mercedes-Benz arena. Using the curbs. This is where he went wide last time, deliberately going out wide again and letting the car drift out now. Catching that SB Hawkey ahead, possibly in the Lamborghini. That's Alex Albon, his teammate, I think, in the other Ferrari that's just ahead of him on the road. So the 2 Ferraris together. That's Vincent Abril in one of the 3 out Racing Mercedes, Team HRT cars of Max Scotts, Vincent Admiral and Hubert Haupt, the team boss, back to DTM this weekend. So Vincent's taking a break from the action. He's in 8th place currently. Haven't seen Christian Clean much on track yet, but the McLaren's going well. He's in the pits currently, but he's 9th quickest. Qualified 8th in one of the sessions in his debut weekend of the DTM at Zolder last time out. And there's Max Buch, who is currently in 17th place. 1:28.8 is his best, so 1.3 seconds adrift on the best time of the session. And the Mercedes of Lucas Stotz still quickest, 1:27.576 from early doors. Michael Ammermüller's Porsche second. That was a pretty early lap in the session as well. Daniel Hunkedaer third. That was an early lap. Lap 5, he set that on, 1:27.755. They're the only 3 drivers to break the 1:28. So you're looking at Nico Müller, who was one of the winners on the sprint version of this circuit last year, albeit with Team AB Sportsline, now with Team Rosberg, but yeah, got a race win here last season. Pretty good time. This is when things were going well for him in the 2020 season, in the middle of the year. From the 4 races at the Nürburgring, 2 on the Grand Prix circuit and 2 at the sprint circuit, had 2 wins and 2 fifths. One of the fifths being a comeback after a spin and a collision early on. And there's his teammate for the weekend, not Dev Gore, but super subbing this weekend and going really well so far, up to 2nd place now, Christopher Haas and the other Team Rosberg Audi, 1:27.687. So that puts him ahead of Michael Ammermüller, who's down to 3rd, Daniel Hunkedaer down to 4th, Philip Ellis is 5th, Liam Lawson has come up to 6th place now. He's on another good lap here as well, personal best through the first sector. And Lucas Auer has also done a 1:28.3, so he's into 7th. Hubert Haupt 8th, Nico Müller 9th. Arjun Maini, watch him going over the line, up to 5th place for Arjun. A 1:27.996 is the 5th driver now to break it into the 1:27s. Behind Stotz, Haas, Ammermüller and Hunkedaer. Just backing off there was Liam Lawson, so he'll be 7th for a while. But he's at a 1:28.2 is his best lap time, almost matching the time of Philip Ellis, 6th and 7th, quite close together. Lucas Auer, as I say, has been finding some time as well. He's in the 1:28.3s, but found a little bit of time through the 2nd sector. He's still a couple of tenths down on the best 1st sector time, but overall, that's a decent lap, a 1:20. No, it's not 1:29.9. Sorry, no, 1:28.8 was his best. So backed off there later on in the lap. Generally, he's been putting some quick times in. So Arjun Maini, the man on the move last time out, it's done a pretty good first sector. Again, it's not a green or purple first sector. There's about 4 tenths down on the absolute best through there. If he can hold it through the 2nd half of the lap, he might get another high 1:27. But it's that first half of the lap where Lucas Stotz has had it over everybody, 44.38 seconds through there. He's actually, and this is pretty rare this happens, Lucas Stotz has been the quickest in all 3 sectors. You normally have a driver that gets the best lap, but he's only quickest in 1 or 2 sectors, but loses out with the setup a little bit somewhere else. But actually, it was almost a perfect lap, that. All 3 sectors early on for Lucas Stotz, putting him to the top of the times. Only about a 10th of a second, though, from Christopher Haas now. Michael Ammermüller's gone back into the pit, still 3rd. Got 16 minutes left in the session. As Liam Lawson, Nico Müller and Daniel Hunkedaer in his shot, coming through. And then Esme Hawkey next up. First visit to her for the Nürburgring in her first season of DTM. First season of racing any kind of GT, international GT spec car as well. And then we've got Vincent Admiral back out on the circuit as well. It's like Alex Albany's pushing on a bit on this lap. And yeah, the 3rd sector of his last lap was pretty good, so his pace is okay currently, but he needs to find an outright better lap time. He's 1.5 seconds off the pace at the moment. So there he is, Alex, the Red Bull Formula 1 team's reserve and development driver. His first season of DTM, which has been a pretty strong one so far. Just seen him on the podium on 2 occasions, although he didn't get to go on the podium at Monza. He was promoted after the race. Did get to go on the podium at Zolder, though. He's had 2 thirds, a 5th, a 6th, a 7th, and an 11th, which was the only time he wasn't in the points. It's qualifying where he struggled early on. this season, but that has now started to come good as well. He had his best qualifying of the season so far at Zolder in qualifying 1 for 4th place. There's Esteban Moot weaving around in the mirrors of Arjun Maidi in the background of that shot. And here's Christopher Haas, who's second quickest at the moment. This 23-car field, biggest grid we've had for a number of years in the DTM. As we go into the final 15 minutes of the session. So Haas the quickest of the 2 Rosberg cars at the moment. Rosberg, of course, taking a 2nd consecutive title last year for René Rast, who's been concentrating on Formula E this year, 3-time champion. But they also had a pretty good run here at the Nürburgring with René. I mean, he didn't win any of the races, but he did have 4 podiums here last year. 2 on the Grand Prix circuit and 2 on the Nürburgring sprint circuit that we're using this weekend. 7 wins across the rest of the season. And there's the Abt Sportsline number 99 machine of Marcus Winkelhock, who had his one and only Grand Prix start, Formula 1 start here in the European Grand Prix, on a rain-affected race, and still holds the record as the only driver to lead a Grand Prix on his debut. The only driver to pit on what was still a dry track on the warm-up lap. The rain had just started to come down. He pitted, put wet tyres on, in a Spiker at the time, which no longer exists as a team. And then the rain came on lap 1. Everybody struggled. Lots of cars went off the road. The rain got worse and worse. Some came into pit then to put intermediate tyres on because they thought the rain was going to go away. It didn't. It got worse. And he was the only one on the proper wet tyre and led by over 30 seconds at one point. Fortunately for him, Fernando Alonso went off the road, brought about the red flags. And then by the time it restarted, it was a damp track. He lost the lead. He gambled with the full wet tyres again, but dropped out of the order and then eventually dropped out of the race with a hydraulic problem. It was his only appearance in Formula 1, Marcus Winkelhock. He was a sub-driver. He was the 3rd driver for the team at the time. He didn't have the budget to complete the rest of the season. And that was it. Qualified last, led the race. Described it as the most exciting 15 minutes of his life, leading a Formula 1 race. Only time the team ever led in Formula 1 as well. Right, Esteban Moot has put an personal best in for Sector 1. Vincent Abril has climbed up to 5th place as well. That's worth noting because that's another driver into the 127s. That's 6 of them now. Stotz, Haas, Ammermuller, Hunkerdea, Abril and Maini. Max Buch's done a personal best in the 2nd sector. Sub-22 is good, but he's down quite considerably in the 1st sector. It's going to be a pretty decent run from Esteban Moot. Where is Esteban at the moment? He's 16th. He's could be pushing up to the top 10. Yeah, 8th place for Esteban. 128.2. Pulled off some blinding overtaking moves. If you follow DTM on the social media channels, there'll be lots of clips of Esteban charging his way through the field with some great daring moves, which pulled off, some of them on the grass at Zolder a couple of weeks ago. Now, absolute best in the 1st sector, 44.361 seconds, and in the last sector, and an absolute best lap of the session for Vincent Abril. So 127.480 is now the new fastest lap of this first free practice session. That puts him just under a 10th clear of Lucas Stolz. There have been around about 30 minutes between those 2 absolute best lap times. Stolz set his on his 4th lap of the session. That was Vincent Abril's 17th lap of the session, but absolute best in 1st and 3rd sectors. And a 127.480 now the time to beat. Stotz down to 2nd, Haas, who's in the pits, is 3rd, Ammermuller is 4th, Hunkerdea is 5th, Maini 6th, Ellis 7th, Esteban Moot 8th, as we saw. Max Buch into the top 10 now in 9th, and Liam Lawson 10th, but only 0.8 of a second down. Esteban 44.7, which is about 0.4 down in the 1st sector. He's about a 10th down in the 2nd sector on the absolute best times as well, but could still be a pretty decent attempt this from the Belgian. The 19-year-old might be another low 128. Let's see as he comes through. Yeah, 128.2 again for Esteban. That's consistency for you. 128.211 seconds, just shading his previous best lap. So he's still in 8th place. Max Gott's down in 16th place at the moment, about a second off the pace in terms of his absolute times. Now this could be up there again if the last sector is good for Vincent Abril. Yeah, 1:29.731. So that's another sub 1:28 second lap, proving he's not just a one-lap wonder. It's half a second away from his best, but it was a good lap, that. Max Scott's failing to get into the 44s through the first sector. So the first sector, which, as I say, is pretty much half the lap, taking you down to the hairpin at turn 6. And there, the predicted lap time is that it's going to be just above his personal best. About half a tenth slower than his personal best, unless he finds some time coming out of the Vidal chicane and through Coca-Cola curve. But it's not going to be a mega lap, this. Going to be at best a low 1:28. Might get him to within a second of the best times, but we'll see what he can do when he crosses the line. Might be a personal best, might not. It's going to be close to it. It is a personal best, but it's only a low 1:28, 1:28.3, so it gets him up to 12th place. Esteban Moot, personal best through sector 2, but it's a short sector, that. Sector 1 he was down. Sector 2 was good, sector 3 rather was good, but overall Esteban not able to charge up the order with that. His best is 1:28.211, that was a 1:28.5, about 3 tenths down. He lost all of that really in the first half of the lap. But we don't know if there's potentially some traffic involved there. Not that traffic really bothers him too much. On board with Mikael Ammermuller now. He's back on track, he's 4th quickest here. And his DTM debut. And certainly somebody who knows this car well, knows the Nürburgring well as well, but pulling over, letting drivers pass. He wasn't absolutely flying through the first sector anyway, so I think he's just trying to find a bit of track position now to maybe push for a quick lap or two in this final 8 minutes of the session. That's Abril, who's quickest, coming to the pits now with the 1:27.480. He's the quickest driver on track at the moment. That would be Max Gotts with that 1:28.3 we saw. There's also a 1:28.3 for Arjun Maini last time out, and a 1:28.4 for Lucas Stotz. Max Gotts on for a improved lap here, currently in 12th. This might get him into the top 10 if he holds it together through the last sector. It's a much better lap. Through he comes, and in the end it is a 1:28.229, finds a tenth of a second. Esteban Moots lost too much time in the first sector to challenge for a 1:27, so that's a 1:28.3. Obviously going for a longer run here though, and that's 4 laps, within 0.2 of a second of each other. So Esteban looking like he's going for a slightly longer run at the end of this session. You can see the number 15 McLaren of Christian Klein just staying out of the way there. Christian was in the top 10 earlier on, he's down to 15th now. Right, Ammermuller, having found track position, is there no, I thought there might be 1 or 2 spots of rain on the windscreen. I think there's just general dirt and probably a few dead insects on there as well. Coming up to the Vidal chicane, wasn't in the 44s in the first sector. That's 7 tenths down on the best first sector time, a couple of tenths down on the best second sector time. So this is not going to be a 1:27 lap, it's going to be a mid 1:28, I think. But he's staying out there and pushing again. Yeah, 1:28.636. Max Gotts into the 44s in sector 1, 44.881. 22.0 through the second sector. So he's definitely going to get a personal best lap here, I think, if he holds it together. 1:28.319. Actually, no, lost out in the last sector. So he's just about a tenth down on his best of the session so far. Who's the quickest driver out on track now? It is Esteban Moot, who's gone 7th, 1:28.074. So that's his 5th or 6th quick lap on the bounce now. That's his best so far, 1:28.074. Just under 6 tenths down on the absolute best time for Esteban. No doubt about his qualifying pace, Esteban Moot. He's had a couple of bad qualifying sessions, but he's also had some very good ones. He's been in the top 5 3 times. Just sort of went off the boil in terms of qualifying at Zolder, which then gave us these wonderful overtakes that he pulled off to get himself into the points. Consistent top 10 finisher this year. Second youngest driver in the field, only younger driver than him is the one you're on board with now, Liam Lawson, who's done personal best in sector 1, personal best in sector 2. He's about 3 tenths or 4 tenths down in the first sector. It's a very good second sector, but he's got traffic ahead, so he won't quite get a 1:27 out of this. 1:28.072. and he's not happy. Bit of hand gesticulation going on here. As he heads down to the first corner, the driver ahead of him is Marco Whitman in the BMW, who's trying to concentrate on his own quick lap here. But Liam definitely having to hold off the throttle there through the first sector. As Esteban Mook staying out. Hubert Haupt coming into the pits in his Mercedes. That might be it for Hubert now, which is 4.5 minutes left on the clock. Certainly up there early on. Windscreen wipers on for Alex Albon. Looking out the commentary box window. It's got a bit more overcast. It's hard to see if there's any rain in the air or not. Might be a little bit out there. But I don't think it'll be everywhere around the circuit. We'll see if it's affecting the lap time as well. Liam Lawson's lap time wasn't affected. It was his personal best, a 1:28.072. There's probably more to come from Liam. He could get in the 1:27s, but he's had that traffic ahead. BMW. Now, Kelvin Van Der Linde, they talked about changing the setup pretty drastically. Haven't seen much from Kelvin at all. He's 18th at the moment. He's not going to be 18th for long, though, if he keeps this up. That's a good first sector. Only a couple of tenths down on the absolute best first sector time. So we'll see how he gets on at the end of the lap. Sector 2 was good as well. It's a 1:28.09, so 9th place on his first charging lap with this new setup. Christian Clean, this is a very good lap. That is close to the absolute best through sectors 1 and 2. So Christian Clean is going to pop right up in maybe the top 6 here if he comes through and completes the lap. Yeah, 5th place for Christian. Excellent effort in the McLaren. It's a great job done there by the JP Motorsport team. It's a relatively new team, the German team, and certainly new to DTM. And be great if we can get Christian, the ex-Grand Prix racer, who's due to do 3 weekends of DTM this season. Be great if he and the team could come back for a full campaign next year, because they've hit the ground running, done a really good job. Really impressed with what they put together at Zolder, and they look good here so far at the Nürburgring. Now, Nico Müller, that's a really good first sector. That's only a 10th down on the absolute best. He's only 16th at the moment, but he's surely going to pop up into the top 10, maybe in the top 5 or 6 if he holds the lap together. He's down a little bit in the second sector, but he's only down 3 tenths. So overall, he's about 4 tenths down, 5 tenths down. He's probably going to be 8th or 9th if he holds it together through the last sector. He's certainly going to be higher up than he is at the moment, 16th. And he'll have time for a couple more laps in this session as well if the rain holds off. Over the line he comes, just outside the top 10. So 11th place, but there's nothing between 7th and 11th. We've got a 1:27.9 for Arjun Maini. Well, it's almost a 1:27.8, so 1:27.996 for Arjun Maini in 7th. 1:28.0s for Lawson and Moot in 8th and 9th. And Kelvin Van Der Linde in 10th, and a 1:28.1 for Müller in 11th. So there's less than 2 tenths of a second between 7th and 11th. Yeah, it's the Playboy livery. It's Hubert Haupt, HRT Mercedes coming in. 16th at the moment, just ahead of fellow DTM returnee Marcus Finkelhock. Both in the 1:28.3s, 16th and 17th currently. Timo Glock, 18th, is the best of the BMWs, but we didn't see much, certainly from any of the BMWs or Marco Whitman in the first free practice, and then it got considerably better as the weekend went on, ending in the win for Marco at Zolder. Amma Müller was certainly attacking. First sector was pretty good, 44.9 on his last lap. So his last lap was a 1:28.3, his best lap's a 1:27.7. There's definitely some spots of rain coming now, though. You can see them more clearly on the windscreen. And it's looking a bit twitchy out there, isn't it? Fighting the understeer there. More rain coming down. He's kept the windscreen wipers off for now. But maybe just backing off a little bit there. More windscreen wipers coming on. It was Alex Albon in the background. He was the first one we saw putting the windscreen wipers on. Müller, who you look at now, found another good lap there on what would be his penultimate lap. He might be affected by the rain now, but it was just in time, that, for Nico Müller to get into the 1:27s. 1:27.936, top 8, all in the 1:27s now. And Liam Lawson is dry over on this part of the circuit. This is where I am, the commentary box just to the left, just before this bridge. And definitely dry over here, but it's wet on the other side, or wetter on the other side of the circuit. 1:28.4. And there the rain comes. When they get to turn 1, that's where you can see it getting to the windscreen. So through the final turn, over the start-finish line, pretty dry. But as you go into the first sector and then the middle sector, that's where the rain, not much of it, but just enough to settle the cars, comes down. But I think I'd be relatively pleased to have got so much dry running in there, because, as I say, there were some dark clouds above us when we started the session. So there you go, typical Eiffel weather. Even when you're walking in the very hot sunshine to the circuit this morning, I had my coat with me because you never know what's going to happen in half an hour's time here. Been here too many times to rely on the good weather staying. I remember here for a few years ago for the 24-hour race where I was doing a grid walk. It was absolutely roasting on the grid. It must have been 32, 33 degrees. And then the race got stopped a couple of hours later with a hailstorm. Cars going off the road left, right and centre as the rain came from nowhere, torrential rain. The race had to be stopped and the hail came. Ridiculous. Then it was hot again. We had everything. Fog stopping the race for a good period of time earlier this year. So that's the end of the session, and it's Vincent Abril who will end the session with the quickest time of 1:27.480 seconds for the HRT squad. It'll be another Mercedes, second quickest, the one of the guest drivers, Lucas Stotz, for the local team, TalkSport WRT, who posts the second fastest time. There is Vincent Abril there in the yellow Mercedes. Only 96 thousandths of a second between them. Good session for Arjun Maini as well, 8th place. Also in the 1:27.9s. Just pipped at the end by Nico Muller with a couple of minutes to go. But thanks to the rain, and it is fairly heavy now looking out of the commentary box window. It's just opposite the start-finish line and just opposite the entrance to the pits. And it's properly raining now, so they just about got that done. Liam Lawson, didn't see much of him in the first half of the session, but then he put a bit of a run together, got himself into 9th place and ahead of the championship leader, Kelvin Van Der Linde, 11th. So that's on Abril, 1:27.480 seconds, just under a 10th quicker than Lucas Stoltz. Christopher Haas, another DTM debutant, 3rd, and another DTM debutant, Michael Ammermuller, 4th. So the debutants, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And Christian Kleen, who's only in his second weekend of DTM, 5th, Hunkerdayan 6th, Muller 7th, Maini 8th, Lawson 9th, and Esteban Moot rounding out the top 10 after his late improvements to the session. Liam Lawson, as I say, improved late on as well. He was 11th. Liam Lawson 9th, Esteban Moot 10th. 11th was his rival Kelvin Van Der Linde. Philip Ellis was 12th. And then we had Max Gotts in 13th, Max Book 14th, Lucas Auer, Hubert Haupt on his return to DTM 15th and 16th. On his return to DTM, Marcus Winkelhock 17th, Timo Glock 18th, Rockenfeller down in 19th, didn't see much of Rocky. 20th was Whitman, and then Albon 21st, Sheldon Van Der Linde down in 22nd, Esme Hawkey in 23rd. That concludes free practice 1 here from the Nürburgring. We'll be back with free practice 2, which starts at 3:30 p.m. local time here in the I4. We'll be on air 5 minutes before that to talk you through the next 45-minute session. But for now, from me, Chris Hartley, and the team, it's goodbye from the Nürburgring.